Okay, let us start the second session, automatic intelligibility assessment of dysarthric speech. In the first session already I spoke about what is dysarthric speech, how it sounds, and you also know that it is difficult to understand dysarthric speech. So if we are able to assess the intelligibility and automatically give some speech therapy, it would help the person with dysarthria so that he can communicate with others easily. So the system overview goes like this. First part is speech utterance is given for feature extraction. So this here is a signal processing that happens, and the features extracted from the signal are given to a classifier. That means here it's a machine learning problem. And finally, the output is identified class label. What is identified class label now? Here in our work, we have considered a database which where there are 4 different persons with speech signals with 4 intelligibility levels: high, mid, low, and very low. So the task here is to assign an intelligibility level to every speaker. So first identify the features, like if the intelligibility is high, what are the features which will be able to distinguish the speaker, which will be able to say that this speaker belongs to high intelligibility level, the other one belongs to low intelligibility level. So they are the 4 intelligibility levels. So this system overview, basically 2 blocks. One is feature extraction, or in other words, I can also say it as signal representation. And the second one is the classifier or machine learning algorithm. So we have to first represent the signal, then give those features which are the representatives of the signal to a classifier or to a machine learning algorithm. So use machine learning and classify utterances as belonging to one of the intelligibility levels. So here, most of you may not be familiar with this kind of diagrams. I'll just briefly explain you what are these. On the left side, whatever you see, this, this is a time domain speech signal of a control speaker. It is the word command uttered by a controlled person, that means a normal person, and the same word command uttered by a dysarthric speaker. These two are the time domain representations, and you can see these 2 diagrams also. What are these? Here, this is called as a spectrogram. That means it is a time frequency representation of the signal. Why this time frequency representation is important? Here, x-axis is time and y-axis is frequency. So here you can see, I'll just highlight the significance of these spectrograms. It is difficult to make you understand everything in a short span of time. I'll just highlight the important things here. You can see some like parallelly lined dark bands here. These represent the harmonics present in the signal. So whatever the difference, you can see there is some almost constant difference between the 2 consecutive dark bands. You can see some there is a fixed distance between the 2 consecutive dark bands. So that is the pitch, that is fundamental frequency with which the person is speaking. And you can also see this kind of variations here. You can see some dark band here, this kind of variation here. Similarly, here you can see some kind of this kind of dark band here. Here, this dark bands here. There are some dark lines here, dark lines here, correct? So these are called as formants. They are the resonances created in the vocal tract. And you can also see this blue line which says what is the pitch of the person at that time. X-axis is time, y-axis is frequency, and this third dimension is the intensity. That means at time t is equal to t1 seconds, what is the strength of a particular frequency component, 100 Hertz frequency component, 500 Hertz frequency component, etc. So roughly, if I take some examples here, here in this region, you can see it is almost white, and around this it is darker. What do you mean by this? Let's say this is time t1 here, time t2 at this point. Then I can say at, when the person spoke the word command at time t1 in this from here to here, like approximately in this interval, he's trying to speak ka, ka. So during that time, there is some strength here. This is the, let us say this corresponds to some 2000 hertz frequency component here. This is frequency 0 hertz to 8000 hertz. So let's say at 5000 hertz or so, at t1 seconds, the strength of 5000 hertz frequency component is so less compared to the same frequency component at some other time instant. At this t1 time instant, the strength of one particular frequency component is so less, and at some other time instant, when he is uttering some other phoneme there, its strength is high compared to that what it had at t1 seconds. So this is the information present in the spectrogram or time frequency representation. This is time representation. This is time frequency representation. Now, why am I showing you this time frequency representations of both controlled as well as dysarthric speech? Because now the task is to, we need to understand in what are the features which will be able to distinguish between controlled speech and dysarthric speech, or in turn within dysarthric speech to assess the intelligibility, what are the important features. To understand that, it is very important to analyze this time frequency representations. Now, just compare these two time frequency representations from control speaker and dysarthric speaker. You can make out the differences now. Whatever these straight lines are there, parallel lines, nice structured lines are there, they are missing here, first of all. That means harmonics are very clearly visible in the time frequency representation of control speaker, while they're absent in case of dysarthric person. Similarly, you cannot observe these nice form and structure. This dark bands, they are not at all clear here. So that means harmonics are absent, harmonics are not clear. Even the form and structure is also not clear. One more thing you can observe is this blue color line. Pitch contour is such a nice pitch contour you have here, but here it has broken at so many places. Why it breaks? Because wherever there is an unvoiced region, pitch information will not be available. Basically, I just wanted to say that it is important to extract good features which will be able to distinguish the utterances. Now, just look at this next slide now. Here you can see this red dots which represent the formants. So this is first formant, this is the second formant, this is third formant, fourth formant. The formant structure is not very clear in case of dysarthric speech. So these are some features that we can give it to a machine learning algorithm, so that the machine will be able to able to classify the given utterance as whether it belongs to control speaker or to a dysarthric speaker. So, and you can also observe the spectrum. Whatever I showed here, this was the time frequency representation, and this is the spectral domain. That means frequency representation, where x-axis is frequency and y-axis is the amplitude. X-axis frequency, y-axis amplitude. Here also you can see left side we have plotted the spectrum from a oval of a control speaker. Here the same thing is from a dysarthric speaker. You can see in this spectrum, if you measure the distance between two peaks, that gives us the pitch. So it is so clearly, like the differences are very clearly visible. So it is very straightforward to measure pitch from the control speaker and see this noisiness in the dysarthric speech. So like this, you should be able to identify the differences. Now, just selected features have been listed here, not all. Speech rate. First, and the important feature is the speech rate. The rate at which the dysarthric speaker speaks is very slow. He takes lot of time to utter one sentence compared to the normal person. Similar, next one is energy. He cannot put lot of energy in the while speaking when compared to normal speech. He gives long pauses because his voice will be so much of uh, his voice will be strained voice, and he keeps repeating. The dysarthric person keeps repeating phonemes because of the problems in speaking, and sometimes he swallows some phones. And two other important features are jitter and shimmer. What is jitter? Jitter is the variation in the pitch of the person across time. So in one time interval, in a given time interval, if the pitch is around varying around 250 hertz or so, maybe in the next 1 second, the pitch will be, there'll be high variation in the pitch. So in dysarthric speech, these variations are very high compared to the normal speaker. Similarly, shimmer. Jitter is variation in pitch. Shimmer is variation in the amplitude. You can see that's why this is shown here. This is variation in amplitude is shimmer, variation in pitch. That pitch is how? How do you measure pitch? If it is time domain representation, measure one complete cycle, time taken to complete one cycle, reciprocal of that gives you the fundamental frequency. So if there are lot of variations in the pitch from across time, then jitter is very high. And for a dysarthric speaker, jitter and shimmer are very high compared to a normal speaker. And here is an example of time frequency representation of an utterance from a control speaker. Already I showed you this slide, but it is more clear in this because I put only one diagram in the slide. So you can see this is the fundamental frequency, and these are the first harmonic, second harmonic, third harmonic, fourth harmonic, fifth harmonic, etc. And here you can see some dark bands like yellow color bands. This corresponds to formants. So somewhere here it is, you can see some dark yellow band here. So this is F1 first formant. Here, this is how second formant has varied. And here, this is a variation of third formant. So in a control speaker, formants and harmonics are very clearly visible. Now coming to dysarthric speech, like because our main aim is to classify the dysarthric speech into one of the intelligibility levels, whether it is highly intelligible or mid-intelligible, low intelligible or very low intelligible. So you can see I have plotted the time frequency representation for all the four here. In high intelligible, it's very clearly seen, formants as well as harmonics, but it goes on decreasing when you move to less intelligible speakers. For example, here you can see in the low intelligible speaker, it is harmonics and formants are not at all clear. So these are the representations. That's why from the beginning I have been stressing on the word signal representation and machine learning algorithm. Now I am talking about signal representation. So what are the different representations that we saw now? One is the time domain representation, that is x-axis is time. Next, frequency domain representation is this spectral domain, and the other one is time frequency representation, which is shown here. This is also known as short time Fourier transform spectrogram, STFT spectrogram. And this is most commonly used time frequency representation. So the x-axis, y-axis is, it can be either a linear frequency scale or it can be a MEL scale. Those who are familiar with speech signal processing will know what is this MEL scale spectrogram. It is not a linear scale. Like this MEL scale spectrogram is basically, it is based on the human perception, because our human ears are more sensitive to low frequency sounds than high frequency sounds. So in this MEL scale, what happens, more filters near the low frequencies are very closely spaced, and filters in the high frequency space are like they are broader filters. You can see low frequencies filters are narrow. That means they are fine tuned. We'll be able to differentiate between this frequency and this frequency here. But at the same time, at high frequencies, this frequency and this frequency both are same for us because both come under the same filter. So this is the MEL scale. So STFT spectrogram can be plotted with linear frequency scale, also MEL frequency scale. Here are the two examples shown. This is the time frequency representation obtained using STFT spectrogram. This is with STFT MEL scale spectrogram. So in the MEL scale, as I told you here, at low frequencies, we have a good frequency resolution because the filters are very closely spaced, and poor frequency resolution when we move towards the high frequencies. That is very clearly visible in this STFT MEL spectrogram. See, at low frequencies, this is the fundamental frequency. This is first harmonics, second harmonic, third harmonics. So clearly we are able to distinguish them. And similarly, form and structure. But high frequencies, they all are merged together. This is linear scale. You can see this. See, up from here to here, 1600. Next 1600. They are uniformly spaced. But in case of MEL, it is not so. See, from here to here, it is 444 Hertz. This is up. From here to here, there are a lot of frequency values here. So always in speech signal processing, this MEL scale plays a very important role. The reason is it resembles the human perception mechanism. So what we did to assess the intelligibility of dysarthric speech, we used the STFT spectrogram. We also made use of STFT MEL spectrogram. And we gave this STFT and STFT MEL spectrogram. We fed these as like these are now treated as images, and we pass these through a conventional neural network, a convolutional neural network, CNN. So just quick look at what is CNN, convolutional neural network. Input image is given first it is given to a convolution plus ReLU mechanism. What happens in this convolution layer? The image will be passed through filter. It is passed through a filter, and the filter coefficients are decided by the convolutional neural network here based on the training samples that you are given. So you know how two-dimension two-dimension convolution happens in images. So this is sorry, I'll just go back. Yeah. So this is filtering operation, two-dimension convolution operation, and this is the convolution layer. And after this, there is a ReLU layer, the activation layer, and we are using the ReLU activation function. What is this activation function? This activation function is added to neural network to help the network learn complex patterns in the data. And after this convolution and ReLU activation function, next mechanism is a pooling mechanism. So in this pooling mechanism is helpful in reducing the dimension. And after that, this will be given after pooling mechanism, it is given to a fully connected layer. A fully connected layer takes the output of this convolution and pooling layer and predicts the best label to describe the image. So we get the output class. The next slide, I have shown the convolution mechanism, how exactly it happens. So you can observe now, whatever the small things you see inside this squares, they are the filter coefficients, sometimes 1, sometimes 0. So this is the convolved feature. So for example, the last one here will be, yeah, whatever you see now, this results in this answer as 4. So you can just watch it later also to understand it in a better way. And this convolutional neural network, there are different configurations. We investigated different configurations. The first one was time configuration. Basically, these configurations depend on the kernel or the filter size. In the previous slide, this filter size was 3 cross 3 matrix. You can observe that yellow shaded region, that is 3 cross 3 kernel or 3 cross 3 filter matrix. And this, so in that case, it is 3 cross 3, which comes under this category, time frequency configuration, where M and N both are 3. And if I choose only time configuration, it will be, for example, 1 cross 2 or 1 cross 3 kernel size. So in that case, the convolutional neural network, it captures only the temporal variations present in the signal. Similarly, if I take vertical kernels, like n cross 1, this is the frequency configuration which captures the changes in the frequencies. So if I want to capture both time and frequency variations together, then we have to make use of time frequency configuration. That means the kernel size should be something of the type m cross n. It is not 1 cross n, it is not even n cross 1, but it should be m cross n. So here we made use of 3 cross 3 kernel size. So it was time frequency configuration. And we gave these 3 different signal representations: STFT spectrogram, STFT MEL spectrogram. I showed you both. And in addition to that, we also gave STFT MEL delta delta as a 3-layer model. I'll tell you what is this STFT MEL delta delta. And these 3 represent signal, we use 3 different signal representations, and we use time frequency configuration in CNN. And about the database used, we used 8 speakers data from the Universal Access Database. 8 speakers means there were 4 female and 4 male speakers, and 80% of the data was used for training and 20% was used for testing. Like I told you, we also use a third input representation, that is STFT MEL delta delta. STFT MEL delta delta. What is this delta delta? You know the meaning of delta. Delta is a small amount of information. Basically what happens in this delta means we are able to capture the temporal variations in this delta images. So STFT MEL is the spectrogram which you saw already. In STFT MEL delta, what we do, I'll just go back to the previous slide. In STFT MEL, this is STFT MEL spectrogram. In MEL delta, what we do, here x-axis is time frames. There are time frames. Let's say there are some 10 time frames in this. So we just subtract first column from second column. That gives you 1 delta. Next, second column subtract from third column. Third column subtract from fourth column. So column wise subtraction will give you the delta information. Then what about delta delta? First column, difference between first column and third column. Difference between second column and fourth column. That is delta square or delta delta. That means difference between not consecutive frames, frames which are like 2 column apart. So that is the meaning of STFT MEL delta delta spectrogram. So STFT MEL delta delta, delta and delta delta. Now after that, what we did, first we tried with STFT MEL spectrogram. We gave STFT spectrogram as the input to CNN. Next, we gave STFT MEL spectrogram as input to the CNN. After that, we tried giving something which is of this kind, like STFT MEL, STFT MEL delta, and STFT MEL delta delta as a 3-layered structure. Like in image form, when we give it in this form, what actually happens is it treats this 1 layer as red, second layer as blue, green and blue, like RGB in the image. And it will take these components as red, green and blue component, and then the final image will be considered as the input to the CNN. So spectrogram with 40 MEL filter bank energies, and its first and second derivative is delta delta delta. These are given as a 3D layer, and that forms the input to the CNN. So these three features serve as roles of red, green, and blue and bundled to get a multi-dimensional input image. This was first proposed by Abdel Hamid in 2014 for speech recognition task, and we have used it for dyslexia speech intelligibility assessment now. These are the results that we obtain. You can see when we used STFT spectrogram, high dysarthric intelligibility level was recognized with 95% accuracy and low with 92%, and on an average it was 93%. Similarly, when the input representation was STFT MEL, this was improved to 86.5%, and with this three-layered structure which had STFT MEL, STFT MEL's delta and STFT MEL delta delta, there was again an improvement. So it was increased from 86.5% to 89.5%. This is for results for female speakers. Similarly, for, female speakers here, this was a male speaker. This is for female speakers. The accuracies for 93.25, 94% and 98.3%. So you can see in both the cases, there is an improvement in the classification accuracy as we change the signal representation from STFT spectrogram to STFT MEL spectrogram to STFT MEL along with delta delta as a three-layered structure in both the cases. And one thing you might have observed now, for female speakers, the accuracy is very good compared to male speakers. What could be the reason? The reason is when we represented the signal using this either STFT or STFT MEL, for example, let us take STFT MEL, STFT itself. So here, the distance between the two consecutive dark lines is the, I told you that is the pitch. In case of male speakers, the pitch value is very low. It is around 100 hertz. In case of female speakers, it is around 200 to 250 hertz. So what happens there? The difference between the lines will be more in female speakers compared to male speakers. So female speakers, it is very, the harmonics are well separated, but that is not the case in the male speakers. So we say that the reason for low accuracy in case of male speakers is because of low fundamental frequency values in case of male speakers. And one can also try other CNN configurations. We have not tried these, but for the future, we have some plans to try these things. Like instead of STFT spectrogram, which is used by many people, of course, we tried STFT MEL and other three-layer structure also. We can also try some other inputs, giving some other inputs to CNN, and other features can be stacked to form an image and used as input. For example, some of you might have heard MFCC, MEL frequency capsule coefficients. So you can just stack the MEL frequency capsule coefficients one above the other in the form of image and try giving it as input to CNN. And also these days, some of you might have heard of attention masks. These are used in CNN applications. So these are useful for applications like emotion recognition and intelligibility assessment, where we don't want the speaker information. Like we don't want the system to identify the speaker. If there are 10 speakers in every intelligibility level, we want to put all the 10 speakers in one group, not as 10 different speakers. So if you want to mask the speaker information, we can make use of this attention masks. And this was about the research that we have been doing. And next we have, like I told, there's a graphical user interface which is available. This is called as NeuroSpeech. This is used to assess the Parkinson's disease. It's an open source software platform designed to perform speech analysis of people with neurodegenerative disorders. Here, the results are being compared to reference patterns obtained with a group of 50 healthy control speakers. And finally, a medical report can also be generated. It is difficult to get a link from here. So what I'll do, first I'll complete the presentation here. And I'll go to the, I'll then open the neurospeech report sample and discuss with you. Okay? And this is like in this COVID-19 pandemic now, there are some universities where they have started with research on speech signal processing, which can help us in identifying presence of COVID-19. So IISc has a project to hear COVID-19 symptoms, that is Project Koswara, still of course in the development stage. Not sure how far we'll be able to go with this. This is also from one of the universities abroad, where the university professor says the sound of your voice could help fight COVID-19. So what they plan to do is record the voice samples and process the voice sample and just uh, guess whether it's a COVID-19 positive case or not. So these are references used. And this is one of our recent publication, which was in IEEE Journal of Selected Topics in Signal Processing. Like that's what I discussed with you, all of you now. Now, this is the end of the presentation. I'll just stop sharing this and I'll go back to, I'll just go and discuss that neurospeech report that is generated. I'll just quickly go through that. Yeah, this is the neurospeech software report generated by the software. So patient name, phonation analysis. What is phonation analysis here? The person will be asked to phonate. Phonate means utter some sustained vowels. E, U. So here, when a person is dysarthric person, he finds it difficult to utter the vowel for a longer duration. That's why this phonation analysis is important. Like how far the person will be able to articulate it. So that is phonation analysis. You can see with that, once you record those vowels, they calculate jitter, shimmer, and other parameters. And this blue line is for reference control speaker. This green one is for dysarthric speaker. So there are some variations. Similarly, some articulation analysis is done and prosodic analysis. Prosody means it is basically the pitch variation. So from the signal, pitch is being monitored and some differences are plotted here. So based on all these features, severity rating will be given. So this is done with the help of this neurospeech software. Okay. So I thank all of you for your listening. I hope this has contributed to your knowledge. Thank you one and all. Okay, thank you.